There are two species in, or there's one species in North America and two main subspecies. They're the lesser Sandhill Crane and the greater Sandhill Crane. The lessers are probably more famous because they are the ones that migrate through the Central Plains states, and there's well over 500,000 of those birds. And they nest from Siberia to Alaska and Canada, and then migrate to the southern south-central United States and into Mexico, where they winter. The greater Sandhill cranes, there are several distinct populations. There's at least 4 western populations and this eastern population. So this group of cranes is referred to as the eastern population of the greater Sandhill cranes. There are 3 non-migratory subspecies of Sandhill cranes, one in Mississippi that is endangered, the Florida Sandhill crane, which is kind of like the Canada geese here in Indiana. They're pets, so you see them walk around subdivisions, golf courses, industrial complexes, places like that. And then there's a Cuban subspecies that is also endangered. Now, this eastern greater population nests in the states north of us: Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, southwestern Ontario, and southeastern Manitoba. They nest in the spring. They nest in wetland areas. Cranes require both wetlands and upland areas for their survival. And so after the young are raised, they begin grouping into small numbers in wetland areas toward the end of summer, and then in early fall they begin their migration. The migrations have shifted later and later over the last 50 years. When this property was acquired, when the first land was acquired in 1929, they estimated only 300 pairs of population were in existence. So as their habitat was protected and the populations began to rebound, then the populations increased. And if you envision Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Lake Michigan, Indiana, and Florida, it's kind of like an hourglass. So those cranes funnel through northwestern Indiana, and cranes had always used Jasper Pulaski, but during that time period, from the population increase, the cranes that used this area continued to use it while many things were happening in the surrounding countryside. There are a lot more agricultural fields now, and there are a lot fewer wetlands, so it tended to concentrate the birds. Another factor that led to the high use of this area is the fact that Sandhill cranes learn the migration route. Young cranes would not know where to go if they were not taught by their parents. So that it's kind of been a geometric progression. The birds that historically used this area continue to use it, and their offspring and then on down the line. So this is a major staging area in the fall. There are some other ones that have began to develop over the last couple of decades. There's another one that builds up several thousand cranes that actually winter in eastern Tennessee along the Hiwassee River just north of Chattanooga. The majority of the cranes winter from there, eastern Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida. The majority of them are probably in Florida. We do a weekly count. Several people before we do the count, I mentioned the cranes need wetlands for nesting. They also roost in wetland areas at night. They do the majority of their feeding in upland areas during the day, but they actually roost in water at night. Our wetland areas are located to the north and the northwest, scattered in amongst the trees. So all these cranes that you see coming in here this afternoon will all leave sometime late evening and fly into the wetland areas to roost. So based on that, since they roost in the wetland areas at night, we use 4 observers around the outside of the property, and we count them as they fly out for their daily routines in the morning. and we've had population. We've had counts, several counts in excess of 30,000. There's probably 50,000 plus in this eastern population. And had another spot there and it flew away. This past count, this week's count was almost 10,000. The peak populations have shifted from mid-October to now they're in mid to late November, and we've even had sub-peaks in December in excess of 20,000 birds. And we've had many 10,000 that have stayed the winter here, even though the water freezes, they just stand on the ice. They still roost in the wetland areas, or the majority of them do. During that time of the year when everything's frozen, some will roost off the state area on private land in frozen fields.
What do they eat in winter?
They eat same